No, we're good. Okay, I'd like to call to order the Cuyahoga County Council Committee of the Whole for Tuesday, June 24th, 2014. Will you please call the roll, Madam Clerk?
Calling the roll, Mr. Greenspan. Here. Mr. Miller. Here. Mr. Brady. Here. Mr. Germana. Here. Mr. Gallagher. Here. Mr. Schron.
Here.
Ms. Conwell.
Here.
Mr. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Hairston.
Here.
Ms. Simon. Here. And Ms. Conley.
Here.
There is a quorum.
Is there any public comment related to the agenda?
Madam Chair, yes, there is. Raymond Hedden.
Mr. Hedden? Come on up.
Okay, real quickly.
Have a seat or you can stand and you got 3 minutes.
Not even that long.
Well, you got to speak into the
Got it,
microphone.
Okay. I did not come here to have a public comment, but actually just decided to have a public comment simply because I saw the sheet out there. I just spoke to my longtime good friend Brad Sprague, who is in Cleveland, and I told him I'd give him a layup in certain respects for what the new rules, and I'm a lawyer, by the way. My name is Raymond Hedden. I'm a bond counsel, been bond counsel for the Medical Marketing Convention Center and Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and a number of other major projects that Cuyahoga County has been involved with. Been involved with county and bond financing for 27 years, mostly at the big firms, and formed a new firm called Hedden & Co. LLC, which had its public announcement event on May 1st. Comprised of folks who've left the big firms, in essence, and set it up under a minority business enterprise. But again, really what I came here to speak about was primarily the fact that there's a new rule that's going to become effective on July 1st called the Municipal Advisor Rule. It's an SEC MSRB, Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board rule. And that rule basically sets forth a duty of loyalty and a duty of care for financial and municipal advisors that had never been there before. And the SEC and the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board is going to enforce that rule effective July 1st. And it's for every single issuer of public obligations in the United States. And in that respect, it's the same kind of duty of loyalty, duty of care that a lawyer possesses in connection with his clients. So that in essence, really, there is going to be sanctions and whatnot if you don't abide by the duty of loyalty, duty of care, and if you intend to operate in the municipal marketplace, it's just a seismic change, and it's good for issuers. And Mr. Sprague, there has been an issuer municipal advisor for a long time, well respected, and just wanted to make sure I said that to you guys today. And it's good to see so many of you that I do know. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else signed up for public comment?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, moving on to items referred to the committee. Item R0140149 has been withdrawn by the administration, so we'll move on to item 0150, and Madam Clerk, would you read that, please?
Resolution number 2014-0150, a resolution confirming the county executive's appointment of Jennifer L. Schofield upon her taking the oath of office as Director of Regional Collaboration of Cuyahoga County and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective.
Okay, is Ms. Schofield here? And we will let you come up to the microphone. We'll cut off our 3-minute timer and give you an opportunity to tell us some things about yourself and your qualifications, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Very good, Madam President and members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity to sit before you this afternoon and walk you through my qualifications for the position of Director of Regional Collaboration. As you know, I've been serving as interim director since the end of April, and I look forward to, with your approval, moving forward over the next several months to complete the work plan. I also wanted to thank the executive for the nomination. So I will be relatively brief and walk you through my qualifications. And let me first start with my education. I hold both a bachelor's and a master's degree in health education from the University of Maryland at College Park. Graduating with honors there. I also hold a specific credential as a certified health education specialist. I recertified that in 2012, and there's a fairly extensive continuing education protocol that goes with that. I'm sure you're asking, how does health education and community health relate to regional collaboration? And I will say, from my experience and from my training, the skills that I have, and particularly the responsibilities and competencies that I have to meet every 5 years for my continuing education, can really be applied to just about any discipline. So just real quickly, some of those competencies include needs assessment for assets and capacity for health education. So if you substitute health education with any number of other disciplines, you would see a match. Planning, implementation, and evaluation of programs, including conducting research, managing programs, serving as a resource, and providing advocacy and communication around the issues are important. So I see that skill set and many years of practice as very relevant to what we're doing in regional collaboration. My work history goes back many years, and I won't start at the very beginning because I want to be respectful of your time. But I did want to call out a particular piece of my work experience. I do have business in the experience in the private sector in varying ways. I've also have experience in academia. I was a part-time instructor in community health and health education at Cleveland State University for 4 semesters while I was doing some private consulting before coming to the county. I also have fairly significant experience in private nonprofit work, which really comes into play in what I've been doing the last couple months with organizations such as the Akron Area YMCA, the Health Museum of Cleveland, which is now part of the Cleveland Museum of Natural History, as well as Cleveland Reads, which was a literacy organization that was here downtown for a number of years. So that work really focused on outreach, education, strategic planning, budget management, again, all of those skills that are relevant to the work that we're doing in regional collaboration. I think, though, what's most relevant to that work is the years I've had in government service. And I have been at all levels of government, federal, state, municipal, and now county. And if I can, let me just walk through a little bit of why I think that's particularly important. I did spend 2 years in Baltimore and DC at U.S. Department of Transportation in the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, which dealt a lot with highway safety and motor vehicle behavioral safety. I was a regional program manager, both in the regional office in Baltimore that served, it was a multi-state region, so Maryland, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Virginia, West Virginia, and the District of Columbia. Most of my responsibilities there was essentially as a consultant to the state of West Virginia on their entire highway safety program. I also managed the region on all drunk and drug driving prevention policy and program development. I tracked all of their state legislation and kept a compendium of that and related it back to federal legislation. And I coordinated, at the time, what was called a Safe Communities program. So that kind of regional work, while done many years ago, I've continued and continue to pull that thread through my work. While at headquarters, I went back a little bit more to what we called stapling and filing. When you're inside the Beltway, that's a lot of what you do, but I focused primarily on rulemaking. So I had a lot of experience in drafting legislation. It came out of the newly funded transportation bill. The time is the Transportation Efficiency Act for the 21st century, focusing again on major pieces out of that bill that focused on alcohol and driving prevention and young driver issues. So I worked with states to make sure that they could comply with the new regulations. So I worked with them to revise their grants and identify strengths and weaknesses in their plans as they move forward to reapply for their funds. So again, a lot of work on policy and program development and while we joke about stapling and filing, you can't get any of that work out to the states and communities unless you get the rulemaking done first. At the state level, I spent 6 years with the Maryland State Highway Administration, again in their highway safety office. I started doing alcohol and youth and young driver education, program development, and policy work. At the time, you might remember there was a lot of graduated licensing work, so we worked a lot with the issue is whether or not young drivers should have any alcohol in their system while they're driving. Had a lot of conversations about cough syrup during that time. So again, a lot of policy. I worked with the State Department of Education to roll out a statewide education program on the new legislation. We also worked a lot with child safety seat legislation and safety belt legislation. Spent a lot of time in Annapolis at the State House there, working to pass new legislation as well as protect existing legislation such as universal motorcycle helmet laws. As I became section chief, I began to run the entire highway safety program. It was a multi-million-dollar program as a combination of state and federal funds. I managed a fairly large staff, not only in the office, but out in the field. Maryland has 23 counties, plus the city of Baltimore, so they have 24 political subdivisions. I worked with all 24 entities, as well as 6 universities throughout the program. And worked a lot to promote highway safety, reduce our crash numbers and other key indicators, but then also worked with my counterparts in the other states to help inform new federal policy and what can we be doing as a network of state programs to improve highway safety numbers. And you might know that over the years, in particular, alcohol and drug-related crashes and fatalities have come down significantly over time. And then locally, I spent 5.5 years at the City of Cleveland Department of Public Health as Health Promotion Director. I co-authored an application where we received 5 years of federal funding, one of the first awards of its kind. At the time, through the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, there were only 40 communities funded, all told over those 5 years. So we had an opportunity to really do some transformative work in the city of Cleveland looking at chronic disease. It had never really been done before. I was actually really proud of that work, and I was having a conversation last week with a colleague of mine at the Cleveland City Planning Commission, remarking and remembering about how one day he picked up the phone and I had called saying, is there someone there who does things with bikes and pedestrians? He said it was the first time he had ever received a call from the public health department. So I think being able to pick up the phone and make those calls and not being afraid of making those calls is really important when you're talking about collaborative work. And then let me finish up with the work I've been doing here at Cuyahoga County on the executive staff. Oh, thank you. Have had a fairly large portfolio of work, including relatively small programs like the Loaned Executive Program, which we launched very early on to engage some business support in the new government and help make some early changes in our operations. A couple of note would be assistance from Eaton Corporation on our new print management work, and then also pulling together a small group of real estate experts to help with the property consolidation study. So that all came through work of the Loaned Executive Program. And then also last year I picked up the Summer Public Policy Fellowship Program, which is a nice tie back to my time teaching. But even more so is my work as County Staff Coordinator, which was really the executive's strategy to look at performance measurement and see how can the county become more accountable with what we're doing. How do we take a across-the-board assessment of what our departments are doing? What are we doing with personnel? What are our policies around personnel? How do we improve productivity? What are the barriers and the challenges in doing that? what are some of the things that are very universal that we can be applying across the board with all of our departments. And so there was some universal work that we did there. And then the other part of that was the critical performance measures that we tackled. So what is the core service that each department provides, and how do we make improvements in that? What do we need to be doing? Maybe what do we need to stop doing because it just isn't working anymore and it hasn't worked in a long time. So we went through a very targeted, very deliberate process in doing that, which is ongoing, and I think has been very, very useful in making some internal decisions from departments and senior staff within those departments to make things more efficient. We have taken County Stat and developed an online database, which has helped a lot. We were able to extract data from that system to continue that work. We've been able to use that strategy and have some spin-offs, which I'll talk about in a moment, applying it to some of the justice system reform work that's been going on for the last year and a half or so in particular, but also to Lake Stat and also to County Stat, the County Health Alliance and Health Stat. Our County Stat approach has been highlighted in the Government Finance Officers Association magazine. I had an article that they asked me to do that was printed in December of 2011. I've made several presentations at national conferences about what we're trying to do here. That is to say, there's still a lot of work that can be done. The County Health Alliance was launched in April 2012. We're now currently in the midst of a community health challenge. We have 9 communities who signed on to the challenge, and real quickly, they are East Cleveland, Cleveland Heights, Euclid, Shaker Heights, Orange Village, Lakewood, Bay Village, Westlake, and Cleveland. And I'd like to thank Councilman Miller again for helping us to secure the city of Cleveland in the challenge. We should be posting the first dashboard of scores sometime later this week. They are working off a pretty robust checklist of items that they have to answer in order to achieve points for the challenge. And for the first time, if they don't have something and they answer no, then we're able to provide some services and work with them until they get that to a yes. So that will run through August 30th, and I'm excited to continue that work. And actually, I think they're excited too, because they keep asking when we're going to post those scores. So they're really responsive to the challenge aspect of this. Another initiative that I wanted to highlight is Lake Stat, which was launched in August of last year. This is the executive's approach and ask about what we're doing around Lake Erie and our natural resources. So again, wanting to do something similar to County Stat, we launched Lake Stat. We had about 100 people in attendance at an event last August. Since then, I formed a Lake Stat dashboard committee. We published our first edition of the dashboard in February, so almost 6 months to the day. And we're working now on kind of Lake Stat 2.0. We have another meeting this Thursday afternoon to regroup that dashboard committee and really look at, are we missing some data metrics on the dashboard? What do we need to complete the story about what we're doing? And there really is a great story about what we've done here in this community to improve the lake, to improve certainly the Cuyahoga River, and the rest of the watershed. And I don't think we get that story out often enough. So using the strategy of performance, looking at data, how do we use that data to develop common objectives and metrics? Everybody's doing their own thing and they're doing good work, but we don't often do that together. So can Lake Stat help drive that conversation and help drive that coordination? That's what we're hoping for. And then as Director of Regional Collaboration, I was before Councilman Greenspan's committee the beginning of May, just a few days after I took on the interim position. So I don't have a lot of new information since then, but just let me quickly recap what we've been doing. Of course, we work, I folded in what I was doing in my previous position into regional collaboration. So on top of what I just mentioned for you, we're still doing shared services, and we're still working on some economic development that hopefully complements what the rest of the work is. As far as shared services, I just want to point out that we have 4 additional web design proposals that are pretty much on the book. So those are from North Royalton, Olmsted Falls, Seven Hills, and Cleveland Housing Court. We've also added a few more agreements for the sanitary sewer maintenance. I actually just had Department of Public Works and County Stat this morning, and so they were sharing that information, and that is Cleveland Heights and Highland Heights are coming in with some contracts. So we continue to make presentations, we continue to make that outreach so that we can continue to expand what we can offer to the communities around shared services. That being said, I also know that there are some challenges as well as opportunities down the road. I want to improve our communication. I want to do a better job of seeking advice and input, including from council, but also making sure that we have more regular meetings with our department heads and have some regular communication there so I can keep better track of what's happening. And then also making sure that we're out regularly in the community at group. We're part of those networks. We're making presentations, so whether it's NOACA or setting up a meeting with some of our nearby county commissioners or going to first suburbs and mayors and managers and others. Those are really important opportunities where we can share what we're doing and then get some assessment, get some feedback from folks. What do they need so that we can make sure that we are trying to meet those needs. We continue to kind of organize some advocacy. We work with our teams both in Columbus and DC to monitor legislation and grant opportunities and see what impact or what relevance they might have to the work of the county. I want to continue to benchmark what we're doing in regional collaboration against other successful efforts. We need to look at where has this worked in other parts of the country and what can we continue to do to improve what we're doing. I want to continue to improve our data collection and measurement strategies. So whether it's employing new technology, I've learned a lot over the last week or so about data scrubbing, which is a program that you can use to collect information off other websites so we don't have to keep replicating that work. That would be very useful in initiatives like LakeStat, where there's a lot of information out there, but we don't have to continue to make separate requests for that. I want to strengthen county stat in what we're doing. I mentioned at the briefing in early May that we're having some conversation with the University of Akron about a Center for Excellence in Local Government. Those talks continue, but there's been nothing finalized yet. We're still exploring some of the details. And I really think that, in closing, I really think that we can continue to strengthen what we're doing in regional collaboration, that it really takes the ability to move from some key partnerships and move them to true collaboration, and that takes a lot of work, and there are a lot of models out there that can get you there, but that's what I intend to do. I have, as you know, it's a very small department with very small staff, but I think we can do that. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, you talked about being in West Virginia and in Maryland. How did you get to be a Buckeye?
Well, I actually grew up here. I grew up in Macedonia.
Oh, okay.
And I was in Maryland for 13 and a half years and came back.
And then what is the size of your staff?
I have about 1 2/3 staff, and then I have a summer fellow till August 1st. That is the size.
All right, questions? Mr. Miller?
Madam Chair, Ms. Schofield, I commend you for the work that you've done for Cuyahoga County, and and I have a high opinion of your qualifications, and I'm planning to vote for your confirmation.
Thank you.
But I do have 3 concerns that I'd like to bring to your and the administration's attention, and hope that you would give them some thought. And the first one is that the county council has not had a whole lot of access to county stat information. And I think that using performance benchmarking should be a collaborative project between the administration and the council. And we would not want to have to try to reinvent some of the statistical work that's being done in the county stat office. So I'm asking that we go back and work on finding some ways that we both feel comfortable with, that the council can participate in this process.
Okay.
The second item is that I'm still not comfortable with the idea of county staff and collaboration being combined. I think there's more than enough work in each area that there should be somebody in charge of each of these areas and not combined. The third thing is that, in my opinion, particularly on the state level, we have not done a good enough job of identifying those things that the state of Ohio could do to provide financial and regulatory relief, and to come up with a list of these things and go after them with the legislature. You know, I don't think it's, we've kind of focused on appropriations and getting grants and getting money for programs, and that's important. But I think there's also things that the state could do that would enable us to save money, that would reduce our regulatory and compliance costs, and we should identify those things and go after them. Thank you.
Were those questions or
Yeah.
statements?
I would welcome any comment if there's any, but primarily a statement.
I'd be happy to respond just
Okay.
briefly. County stat, there are a couple things with county stat. One, it's an internal management decision process for departments to really take a good look at some of their personnel issues, and how do we make improvements in productivity and employee assessment. So, you know, they continue to remain an internal management decision. If, you know, I'd be happy to include county council on the schedule if you'd like to have some opportunity to for county stat to be applied to what you're doing. I'm not quite sure if that's what you were looking for, but we have engaged boards and commissions in what we're doing.
Madam Chair, Ms. Gove, that's not what I had in mind.
Okay.
What I had in mind is that that the county council is charged with oversight of county government performance across the board, and you've developed performance metrics and statistical tools for helping to do that, but we have almost no access to that information, and I'm concerned about that.
Okay, well, she'll have an opportunity to deal with that, so let's move on to the other question. I mean, if you have some quick answer, or
Well, just that a lot of the work that
maybe out of her control.
Yeah, and we do incorporate that work in what we bring forward in program development and what goes into the budget. So the work that we do is applied to much of the information that comes before you in various ways. So that internal assessment and monitoring is what we do to make sure that we're putting forward good information and good planning. the separation between county stat and regional collaboration, actually the link there is quite strong. As I mentioned, we have applied that strategy to external public policy initiatives. So whether it's Lake Stat or Health Stat or the work we're trying to do to really kind of embed the strategy of performance measurement through a Center for Excellence in Local Government, it really does apply. So one might be more internal and the rest is external, but they learn from each other. And so in that regard, I think, I think they do match. Now that might change down the road, but that's kind of where we're sitting right now.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Schron, then Ms. Conwell, Ms. Simon, Mr. Greenspan.
Thank you, Madam President. During your predecessor's time, it appeared as though, from a distance, it looked like spent a lot of time on the merger of 4 communities and a lot of time on the anti-poaching documents, and I'm not sure where we got with a lot of that, but it ended up like the shared services became the focus of really where the benefits were, I thought, to the regional collaboration. I don't know if, I'll just put that as a comment first and ask you your feedback on that assumption, whether the shared services is a high level.
Yeah, shared services remains. That's absolutely part of the work portfolio for regional collaboration. I just don't have a lot of updates from the last time I made an update to Councilman Greenspan's committee in early May. That absolutely remains a big piece. We continue to assess what the county can provide, so whether it's the sewer maintenance or microfilm or work that might be able to come out of the print shop, what we're doing in through human resources, whether it's the regionalized healthcare benefits program or some of the training that our analysts are doing for communities, that absolutely remains a big piece. So we'll continue to expand that as we can, as it makes sense. The merger study, we are going to circle back to that. There were some recommendations that came out of that study, and we want to go back to the 4 communities, to those 4 mayors, and say, of these 5 recommendations, is there one that piques your interest a little bit more than the others? And can we do a little bit of almost like a pilot test work around that? One that keeps coming up is the shared equipment depot. So we will circle back to that and see if we can't glean a little bit more information on that one aspect of the study.
Okay, so if shared services are extremely important, what are the top 3 that you are going to pursue as far as shared services?
Of the existing or new?
Whatever you think should be the top 3 that your office should be pursuing. And it sounded to me as though you were describing most of the shared services being things that we're delivering. I have always heard it being shared services amongst communities, but if it's not, I didn't hear that in your definition very much, other than perhaps a piece of equipment.
Well, then you're right. There are 2 pieces of shared service. What we can provide as a shared service, and then what communities can share. If it's what we provide, we have some strong ones.
What's your top 3, whether they're what we provide or what should be provided amongst communities?
Okay, regionalized healthcare benefits is a strong one. I think the continued work around public safety shared equipment is a strong one. And I think what we can do with some of the infrastructure shared, such as the sewer maintenance, would be a strong one.
Okay, in your early testimony, it sounded as though you have background and experience in the medical with some of your background. Mm-hmm. Give me your background on the other 2 components as far as equipment and sewers.
Well, I don't have, well, let me.
Give me your knowledge
I'm not
first,
an
and then
engineer. I'm not an engineer, so I can say that. But the work that I've done with Public Works and the information I've shared with them around what they're doing at this shared sewer maintenance is important. What I've learned and the groups I'm working with through Lake Stat, which has a lot of that kind of infrastructure as part of its assessment. So whether it's combined sewers or single sewers, gives me enough information that I can sit down at meetings and talk about policy and talk about strategy, about how we improve that, what we need to do. The shared equipment, especially in public safety, I know that Public Safety and Justice Services has been working on this for a number of years. Regional collaboration provided a support to what came out of that department. But I've also worked many years with law enforcement, and I have an understanding of those equipment needs and what it takes to have that to get their job done. I also understand that if we can share equipment, then we can save money. And that's important either to improve a budget or so that we can reinvest elsewhere.
Thank you.
Ms. Conwell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. To Director Schofield, what was the primary finding of improving the personnel productivity? You stated that in your meetings, you guys talk about personnel issues. What was the primary finding of what you felt is improving personnel productivity in the county?
Well, as you know, that's a complicated issue. What we've examined through county stat is absence hours. Absence hours we've taken a look at, which has helped us make some tweaks to the internal policy. So we monitor that on a regular basis. So we're looking at sick leave and others. That helps determine staffing and workflow. So the workflow analysis is another key component of that, and that varies from department. So if you're looking at workflow analysis in the sheriff's office, it's going to be a little bit different than workflow analysis in economic development. But we find similarities in the large agencies like sheriff, like Children and Family Services, who are working with corrections officers and deputies out on the street and maintaining the jail, for example, that work in those shifts. What is the best way? Do we go 8-hour? Do we go 10-hour? Do we go 12-hour shifts? So what does best practice tell us that we need to do? On the other hand, if you're looking at child welfare, what do social workers need? What kind of support do they need? Is it technology? Is it training? What equipment do they need out in the field to better do their job so that they're more efficient? So it's a complicated analysis when we go department by department. The fiscal office spent some time comparing productivity by employee in certain positions with certain responsibilities. And so they were able to make adjustments there.
Do you have conversations with Director Hare in regards to some of these issues?
Yes, we certainly have over time. She was very important in establishing county stat at the front end and what we needed to do, and human resources, information technology, and fiscal are kind of the underpinning of our assessment now, because those are three critical areas that support everything from an operational standpoint.
And I guess my concern is the information from the employees getting to your office and things of that nature? Because I thought the primary focus would be, pay equity. We are trying to work on those issues, and not that it always relates to performance levels, but in many cases it does have a barrier, a factor in that.
Pay equity has not come up as a factor in this kind of county stat analysis at this time.
And a final question, what have you instituted as far as communication with council since being placed as interim director?
Well, one thing I've done is I mentioned a couple things, especially around the County Health Alliance and the Health Challenge at my briefing. I went back and pulled together information. I sent it over to Trevor McAleer for distribution. And that's when I had some conversation with Councilman Miller about reaching out to his communities. In the meantime, I've been trying to get my staff together and organized, and haven't really launched anything new for major communication at this point. But my plan moving forward is to provide some regular communication, especially as we're getting ready for outreach, or we're going to be in a meeting that you might be interested or is housed in one of your communities, to let you know that we'll be there. As far as formal communication strategy, I've not developed that yet.
And just a suggestion, I guess, in regards to all the universities and colleges we have here, some kind of credit, something working with the Urban Studies Department, various fellows that could just utilize it at grad students as a credit base, being, a help to you. So I know that takes time to implement that and reach out for that, but just a suggestion.
And we do have some of that. I know Human Resources is trying to work on an externship program that provides a regular feed of students.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President, and congratulations for your nomination.
Thank you.
Impressive background, and I just wanted to ask about the time factor of this position. Your predecessor had his full-time occupation working on the job of shared services and the protocol, and now it appears that this position is being merged or going to be shared with your other position regarding the stats. Now, how is that going to play out when we had a full-time person handling this job before, and now it appears you're going to be sharing your time between the two positions?
What I intend to do is really kind of integrate the work as best I can. So bringing on something like the Community Health Challenge or the Community Health Alliance or Lake Stat is setting up a process and a system of reaching out and connecting to those stakeholders in a way that doesn't require a lot of duplication in doing that. And so how do we make the connection between these types of initiatives under the lens or through the lens of regional collaboration? What can we do? Because we all work with a number of stakeholders, often on many different issues. So how can we better integrate this work so that it doesn't seem like such an overwhelming portfolio where each responsibility is separate and distinct from the other? So that's my challenge moving forward as director. I'm also, have some staff support, maybe perhaps a little bit more than Mr. Jurst did, but looking at those systems to try to alleviate any duplication.
I don't recall your predecessor either having technical experience in sewer maintenance or dispatch. Is that correct?
That's my
As
understanding.
far as you knew, that I don't recall questions about his technical experience. So this job perhaps can be accomplished with a different skill, the skill set that you have. Is that correct?
That's my interpretation of this, is that what you really need is not content expert in every subject, but the ability to bring the stakeholders together and actually move things forward, whether it's policy or other projects.
And finally, when you're working on Lake Stat, have you had contact with the Cuyahoga River Remedial Action Plan chair?
I don't know if I have it. I don't know the name.
That's the RAP. And
okay, yes.
That's the place to go. And I know your job perhaps is to take, measurements but really there's people out there who are doing this collaborative work already.
Yes.
And I hope that that's something you can look into instead of reinventing this wheel, because the RAP is an organization that's already established, that is a planning organization to address the watersheds and the river in particular.
That's correct. And Lake Stat is not an attempt to create new data. It's pulling the existing data into one place and showing and bringing those stakeholders together and really look at some integrated planning.
Thank you. Mr. Greenspan?
Great, thank you. First of all, I appreciate you being here today. It's my belief, and I've shared this with others, that this to me is probably the most transformative position in the county, the position of Director of Regional Collaboration, with its ability to take the county resources that are available as well as the community's participation and really transform the county to be more collaborative. I don't believe that there's an opportunity to, and the merger study somewhat proved that out, to consolidate cities, but I believe there's an opportunity to start sharing services in a more effective way. One of the concerns that I've had with the current position is, and it's been touched on a little bit, is the staffing. Mm-hmm. I know it was Director Jurst and Emily Lungard for a while, which I didn't feel was enough for such an important high-profile position. As you look towards 2015, and obviously we're working within a biennial budget, which this is a mid-year budget period. What do you envision requesting as far as staff and resources to help facilitate a mission?
What I've done to date is sit down and examine the current budget and make sure we have sufficient funds to cover what I'm trying to do now between now and the end of the year, which we do. Looking forward to the next budget, I haven't done enough strategic planning. I have to look and see what is needed. I would, of course, say I would love more staff. I think more staff would truly benefit the department because there is so much work that can be done. But, you know, that said, in an honest response, I haven't done enough of an assessment to know what that budget should look like yet.
Okay, I was going to direct the question into a 2015 kind of vision that you may have. However, we know January 1, there'll be a new executive, so with a new strategy will, I'm sure, be implemented. For the next 6 months, what do you plan? What is your vision? What's on your table for the next 6 months?
What I hope to do and what I plan to do for the next 6 months is, one, either finish out what we've started and finish out in good form and make sure that the lessons we've learned, whether it's from the merger study or some of our other work in regional collaboration, is pulled together neatly and distributed appropriately. There are certainly lessons to be learned from what's happened to this date. I also work, my kind of work approach and my work ethic is working till the end. So if there are new opportunities that present that make sense, tied into what we're already doing, I'm not afraid to kind of build out that strategy and have it at least ready to go, so that the next executive can do with it what is deemed necessary. I think that's important for continuation. I think that's important for transition. We have a very full plate right now. I think some of the work could be turned over to existing stakeholders. The County Health Alliance, for one, might be something that could be turned over and integrated with what the Board of Health is doing. They are certainly a key partner in that. So that's part of my consideration. But I think Cuyahoga County has started something that's pretty unique, and I'd like to kind of cement that as much as possible.
Let me make this. Council for the month of July is going to be focused on charter amendments. So in August, I'd like to have a committee meeting, and if you can come at that point and give a little more granular information as to some of the priorities and strategies that you're working on, at least at that point, because you've been in less than 60 days, I get it, but maybe at that point, understanding that that'll be a request in August for you to bring forward. If you could start working on that to give a presentation, that would be helpful.
Happy to.
A concern I have, I mentioned the staffing scenario. And looking at the duties you've been performing, the loaned executive, the summer policy program, county stat, and I believe your title is deputy fiscal officer. Are you keeping all of those responsibilities in addition to the director of regional collaboration?
I'm keeping not the title, but the responsibilities, yes. And as I mentioned, the challenge to me is to integrate that.
How do we, that causes a lot of concern. I got to be honest with you, and I know it's not you've been put into this situation. Each one of those in itself very well may be a full-time coordination position, or at least some consolidation. But now you're going to effectively have 4, maybe 5. I don't know what your role as deputy fiscal officer is. If it's merely a title to encompass these responsibilities, that's one thing. But absent of that, you're now going to have 5 areas of responsibility. I know cities that have a county stat type position that have full-time dedicated staff to that alone, let alone a loaned executive or a summer policy program individual, which very well may be part-time positions. But the director of regional collaboration is a more than a one-time, full-time one-person job. I don't even know how to address that at this point, because you've got more on your plate. We're almost having Bonnie Teowin Jr. here with the amount of responsibility, although Bonnie's got staff and you've got no staff.
1 2/3 staff.
Does that 1
But-
2/3 include you?
Pardon?
Does that 1 2/3
No,
include you?
that's in addition to me. That's support staff. So let me just, for a couple things. One, the summer fellowship program ends August 1. So they're cleared out. So that's essentially off my plate, less a couple loose ends to tie up. The loan executive program has been essentially dormant for quite some time. So we occasionally get a request for a loan executive, and we try to fill that, but that's not necessarily an active program. So what I'm taking on my previous portfolio that really focused on county stat, the Health Alliance or Health Stat and Lake Stat, I really think can be integrated into what Regional Collaboration was doing fairly seamlessly, and I do have good support staff. I also certainly have a sounding board and leadership from Nate Kelly and others who are well versed in a lot of the economic development piece of this. So I think there's support to move this forward.
I give you a prime example. Mr. Gallagher and I were keen on this 911 consolidation project, which in my opinion, the Director of Regional Collaboration should have been taking the lead on coordinating that activity. And the functional area of public safety should have been a supplier of that information in coordination with Public Works and other collaborative entities within the county. So maybe it's my own personal opinion that this position has a lot more meat on the bones than is being presented. And I'm not here to criticize you. I just don't necessarily believe you have the resources to be effective. And that's something maybe we'll take up with your guidance in the 2015 budget cycle. Two other real quick points. Community outreach. You talked about the collaboration of equipment within our communities. The Auditor of State, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but the Auditor of State has a software program that they've rolled out in Lake County in a pilot opportunity to share where the communities within Lake County are aware of each other's resources, and that may be something to point towards as a vehicle to, no pun intended, but as a vehicle to utilize as a model within the county. And one other quick point on council collaboration. Mr. Miller touched on it. I would argue internally, I'll talk externally first. There's been, the 11 of us can serve as a valuable resource, you've heard me say this before, in helping the county overall deliver some administrative and some collaborative efforts if utilized. And I don't believe we've been utilized to the full extent. So I would ask a twofold request that if there's communication with our communities, major communication, that council be included so that we can help facilitate the project or the program. And then in turn, I believe you'll find it that your staff could grow by nearly 11 to help you facilitate your mission as well.
Very good.
All right, thank you.
I have one question. In your resume, indicates employment history. It says Health Impact Consulting, Inc., 2008 to present, and you're the president. Is that an outside employment?
It is dormant. It has been.
Well, have you registered that as outside employment?
It is a entity that I own, yes, but it's not a matter of employment right now. It's been dormant since December 31st, 2010.
Well, do you have any income from it?
No.
I don't know if you're splitting the hair. I think you're still required to list it.
I reported on,
Okay.
but I was not. I've checked with the Inspector General. I'm not required to list second employment from that because I don't earn any income from it. But I list it as something I own.
Okay, all right. I mean, so you got this going, but you're just kind of dormant, and you got like these other 5 positions for the county.
Right.
All right. Okay. All right, Mr. Gallagher, and I think, is there any other questions? Mr. Germana?
Hopefully an easy one. Your predecessor, Mr. Kelly, and I went round and round many moons ago about poaching. What is your definition of poaching? It seems everybody has one.
Poaching would be my personal definition, kind of taking something that's not yours.
I think poaching is one city going over its borders into another city and enticing a company to move over to the first city. I recently, shouldn't say recently, but I had one of those, and I'm a little bit unique because not everybody's in my position where I have inner ring and outer ring suburbs. Some of us are, some of us aren't. And I had a inner ring suburb, in my opinion, poached for an outer ring suburb not in my district, with the full faith and cooperation of the county financially. I thought it was a clear poach, and the powers that be at the time told me to back off. I wish they hadn't, but they did. But I was told, no, that's not a poach. And my fallback is, and no one can answer this, give me an example of a poach. And nobody wants to give that example, and the reason they don't want to give that example is because there's a big city in Cuyahoga County that does the most poaching, and nobody wants to say anything about it. So, but I had a poach, at least I thought so. So it seems to be a term of art.
Okay.
So maybe, why don't you figure that out with Mr. Kelly and get back to me on that. It's just, I think it's very important in your position to know exactly what a poach is and not to get involved from the county side if we see that as a clear poach.
Understood.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Jermaine and then Ms. Campbell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I was waiting to hear about communication with council members on what you're doing out in the hinterland. So this isn't a question, it's just kind of a statement. I've been kind of disappointed from the collaboration point of view as far as communication. As an example, if Nate Kelly's doing something in a project in one of the 3 cities I represent, I get the heads up. If the sheriff is doing something in Parma Heights, Middleburg, I get the heads up. When the IT director, Jeff Mowry, was doing something with the city, I got a nod. I'm sure there is a heck of a lot of communication that's going out to these various cities, and we don't know about it. And I would hope that that can be improved. We don't need a full report. Just knowing if we need more information, because we're out there in the communities meeting with these elected officials, council people, and so on and so forth. They think we know what's going on. We really don't. So I just hope that you would keep that in mind.
And I'll just say quickly that what I want to do is have that kind of conversation more frequently with the department directors so that we can track that as well. So when we do, I believe someone mentioned just some major events, especially, I'll do my best to get that information out as needed.
I think Ms. Campbell has one final question.
Yes, through the chair to Director Schofield. You know, I'm the HR chair, and my main concern is pay equity, and one of the issues is men and women being compensated at an equal, especially in the same positions and doing the same thing. So I guess my final question would be, are you being compensated for your additional responsibilities in this position?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions, I believe the procedure now, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Green, Jones.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Director Schofield, a few weeks ago, I attended a meeting in Strongsville for our mayors, other elected officials, to discuss collaboration around the issue of the federal transportation bill. So having met with them and had a few conversations, I could see the importance and need for collaboration. Can you tell me how your office, if you were in attendance, or if you see a connection in what your office could contribute in that area, maybe interacting with the Planning Commission or our Department of Development in some way?
The regional collaboration was not at that meeting. I was not aware of that meeting. But in that particular case of the federal transportation bill, I know we talk with Public Works to see what their requirements or what their needs or concerns might be with that transportation authorization. We do track it with our team in DC as it's making its way through the process, but I was not aware of that meeting. I would think, though, that the second part of your question would be that there would be opportunity to have those discussions to see if we can't put forward some recommendations that benefit the county as a whole.
Councilman Strawn's question of your 3 priorities, it's probably an important one, because when I think regional collaboration, there's so many ways you can go. You mentioned 3, and I didn't catch the first one. Could you tell me again what your 3 priorities were?
I believe I said it was the Regional Healthcare Benefits Program.
Okay, that was the first
And
one.
particularly because that's such a burden on employers.
Okay. Do you see in the area of, we obviously have the demolition legislation coming before us, but the need for and connection between the Cleveland as a core and the remainder of the county, and the impact property taxes, the devaluing of property taxes in one area has created a greater tax burden in outer ring areas. Do you see your office being able to play a role in any way in any type of collaborative efforts in that? Is that beyond the scope, or where do you see yourself falling in that?
Well, there's a couple things that we can do there. One, can regional collaboration actually help facilitate some discussion around that? 2, I don't have the fiscal expertise to get to the details of the work, but certainly regional collaboration aligns with what's happening in development, which a lot of that activity falls there, as well as fiscal. So I can help facilitate that if they need that.
And last, I am also a graduate of the University of Maryland College Park, so
Fear the turtle.
you got
Go
my vote just
Terrapins.
on that. There we go. Go Terp. University of Maryland, Terp.
Yeah,
Terrapin.
terrapins, turtles, yeah.
Okay. I didn't know turtles could fight. Okay, is there any other questions? All right, and I believe the procedure now is if there's no other questions, since this matter has been referred to committee, we have to refer it out of committee and refer it to the next meeting, which would be July the 8th, under suspension of the rule for passage. So is there such a motion? So moved. Moved by Mr. Schron and seconded by Ms. Conwell. Any discussion on the motion to move this out of committee? All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. We'll have this on the agenda under suspension of the rules on July the 8th, at such time Mr. Brady will be chairing the meeting. Okay.
Thank you.
Do we want to take a very quick break, or do we just want to move on to our next item? Very quick. Okay, very quick break, like 5 minutes. Yvonne, that building yesterday was as nice as this lady friend of mine who spends like $3,000 a month at